Welcome back to the show, and you are tuned in with myself, Nafeesa Dangor. It's been an inspirational morning with really major inspirational segments, and each one has taught us a different aspect of our lives. And talking about that, I'm going to be speaking to, I don't even know what to say, a phenomenal, amazing achiever, an inspirational woman on our segment today. We're going to call it our role model segments, people that go out there and make differences in lives, but also give back in many directions. And we're going to be chatting to Rehema Isa, a seasoned business strategist and social impact entrepreneur. And she's going to talk to us about her exploits in the business world. And of course, congratulations many a times for being the overall winner at the Women of Stature of the Year. That's so phenomenal. Assalamu alaikum. How are you doing this morning, Rahima?
Alaikum salam, Nafeesa. Thank you for that amazing warm welcome and a good afternoon to you and your listeners. It feels unbelievable still.
Well, before we start, a hearty congratulations on behalf of myself and the team. A well deserved one. Definitely, when they say a woman of stature, I'd say a woman of stature. And of course, a woman of many other positive attributes as well. So, congratulations once again. You make us proud. We wish you nothing but the best for the next year going forward. I was there, I was truly blessed to be able to be in your presence when this particular award was given to you. So, once again, from myself and the team, a hearty congratulations, a well deserved one.
Blessings well received. And thank you to the Salam Media team because I think, and I've been on your platform a couple of times in the last few years. And I think one of my biggest lessons in life is that you never know who's listening, right? So you always think that the things that you're doing are small, but I don't discount that the platform you've afforded me over the last couple of years, since being introduced to you, has not been without impact, and that not we have not, been in a small way to count towards people knowing and understanding some of the work that I have the opportunity to do. So thank you back, and I receive the blessings and warm wishes.
Thank you. But before we go on, I just want our viewers to know a little bit about you. So I'm going to tell them. Rema is the CEO of Hadithi Media, which exists to discover, develop, and share stories from the African continent, which I think is phenomenal. Rema has a background in accounting and finance. Her experience spans major corporations in the financial and banking sectors. She has consulted for companies in various industries, including power utilities, banking, the minor sector, government institutions, small businesses, and IT companies, which she has led a number of strategic projects with. Um, and I also want to say that from a perspective, from a personal point of view, Rema is a phenomenal a wonderful human being. She works with executive women in the corporate and government sector as a leadership coach, promoting value realization management for women in business, which I think is absolutely great. So, pen us out your journey. I mean, it's a very interesting one, I must say, and I'd like our viewers to know about the true essence of Rehema Isa.
Thank you so much. I have since moved from Hadith Media. So my journey, I always say, started in the world of accounting and finance, risk management, and moved into strategy very quickly and management consulting. And that's really where I've had the opportunity to hone my talents and to have a Pan-African, not just influence, but exposure and an opportunity to not just shape local strategies, but strategies on the continent with a particular lens focus of working with women. When I founded Hadith Media, but I think about 8 years ago, it was with a mission to amplify the voices of African women. And that was because of a gap I had identified that in the spaces of development, and that's the word that's used, in empowerment, which I contest because we are empowered already, and the engagement and access issues, the issues. Um, what I discovered is that we'd have all these platforms for engagement, and the African woman was often invited as an audience member and not as a curator of content. And so the journey into Hadithi was actually a culmination from a journey in strategy advisory, where I thought, let's change this narrative. Let's not just sit with the issues. Let's create a new landscape, and went into publishing with the idea that if we got more African women authors published in terms of the written work, in terms of the audio work, in terms of the visuals, would be able to change the landscape of what people consume as a strategic tool. And that's what got me involved in the TEDx journey, the ability to amplify African
Mm-hmm.
women's voices on a global platform, digitally for free, that breaks down the barriers and questions of who are they, what do they know. Once they are global, there's no question. Everybody knows what they do. And I think 7 years of having done that has been phenomenal, because with over now 100
Mm-hmm.
women who go to the TEDx platform through this initiative, we can sit back and we don't go into spaces, and we're seeing it in many places where African women can command space, and we're not hearing the question, where are they? We are always now hearing, this is where you find. So it's for me, it's a strategic construct that I always say that looking to change the game, but willing to put in the work that is required to change it. And I think that's been the key tenet of the story of where I have become an investor in my principles, an investor in my own ideals, and by investing in them, creating the entities that exist to interact with the world on those ideas and principles, and journeying through the curation process of idea imagination to idea execution to tangible aspects that people can look at. And that's been my journey. So I also run a not-for-profit organization called Women Africa, and that's got a bold mission. It's understanding that as Africa, we're part of what is now being touted. We said before, we're talking about the African Continental Free Trade Area, but now
Yes.
we've got this phenomenal tool that says we've got the world's largest free trade area, the world's the greatest landmass that is working together in a free trade zone. What does that mean? And again, being cognizant of the opportunity that exists, but also the challenges that exist that would exclude women's participation. So we've got a bold mission, which is to facilitate that Africa's women can receive half of the 6 trillion that is said to be made possible by Africa doing business with each other. So we ask bold questions. What needs to change? And what needs to change is African women having access to and being a key party to additional trade. What needs to happen to do that is a journey that we then walk, because I think as TEDx shows, it's not an overnight thing. So we're sitting
Yes,
back
for
and
sure.
saying, by the time we are talking about the $6 trillion in GDP value terms, what have we put in place? And we're saying the 3 fundamental things: access to information and insight. We've got to make sure that more women have access to this. In an era of a gender digital divide, it's become even more pertinent that we put more voices out there so that women know where the opportunities are. So that as an African or South African entrepreneur, you're not just thinking about South Africa as your market, you're already thinking about this Pan-African market. So from 57 million, you move to 1.2 in terms of a total population base. But really that makes the mindset different, right? So the second element is access to capacity building. And so for us, understanding that a lot of our women-owned businesses are small and micro, we need to understand that there's a journey to capacitate them. And it's not just in terms of knowledge, but capacitate them with the access to resources, access to networks. And so the third element for us, and for the capacity building, is a skills element. It is exposure to different ways of thinking, looking at things, business models, because I think you can know on this continent, disruption is happening, technology disrupting. So that capacity building is with the right tools to operate competitively. And finally, the third element that we exist to do as a not-for-profit is to facilitate access to ecosystems. And I always use COVID as a brilliant example of how the breakdown of strong ecosystems meant that the African women became more vulnerable. The fact that China could not produce or send certain things through meant that we were closed off. That was an amazing missed opportunity to accelerate production and manufacturing in spaces where African women had small scale to bring that bigger. So I think for us, my passion and my partner's passion is to sit back and say we have a role to play as we run businesses, to be conscious of a bigger conversation. And for us, that is why the not-for-profit exists.
I
but
so agree with
also
you there, Rahima, because the thing is, I just want to come in there because I'm seeing the essence of all of this being put together, this journey that you're panning out to me. And I think it's so
yeah,
imperative for people out there to know that you've literally, because a lot of the times we talk about Africa and everybody just concentrates on South Africa. Whereas we're an
yeah,
African continent. We're all proud Africans, not just South Africans.
yeah,
And I'm so grateful for you because you've come in there to be able to bridge the gap for these women that are out there that can do phenomenal things, that have tons of potential. And you going out there and you divide, taking that bridge divide and closing it up by giving them the necessary tools they require from a holistic level, which I think is imperative and important because what you're really doing is defining the need in each particular aspect of what you're doing and then saying,
yeah,
what is it that these women really need? What is it that we can do for them?
exactly,
From a micro perspective and
exactly.
a macro perspective, as far as business, agriculture, and all those things are concerned, going out there, defining that need, and of course, fulfilling that need, helping them by giving them that necessary skills development that they require to be able to build not just their businesses, but themselves as people as well.
Absolutely. And I think that that's the key, right? We all say African solutions by Africans, but we don't take time to curate them, right? And I think that,
Mhm.
for me, this is the strategic lens coming in. I say that everything that I do is founded on my skill and talent. And that's looking at things strategically, not having a short term outlook and saying it's going to happen tomorrow, but to enroll people on the journey of change. And that journey of change requires a long term commitment. It needs patient capital. It needs patient change, which means
Mm.
there are going to be stumbling blocks, but it's to build a bigger picture. And once we're enrolled into that, I call this phase evangelism. Let's buy into the Africa that we'd like to see. African entrepreneurs, I don't think are aware of just how well placed and resourced they are to actually participate more meaningfully, not in their own economic zone, which I would first
Mm.
of all limit to the South Static area, but to expand that in terms of we've got access to financial services that has been a lot more, well entrenched in our environment. It's very
Mhm.
stable. Access to capital in this environment with very good business plans. You have got a number of service providers that can do that. And I think living on the continent, and I always say to people, I was desensitized from brands by walking
Mm.
into a shop in Dar es Salaam and having 20 brands of tomato sauce. And that totally shifted my mind saying, the only reason I'm buying what I see now is because it's what I know. What is the
Right.
opportunity for the South African entrepreneur to service a greater market, given what we have in infrastructure, resources, knowledge, skills, by focusing only on this is my market and having that mentality, even about people coming in, we're not exploring the true opportunity of being Pan African. And that's a real area of focus for us. And so, I mean, during lockdown, the third business that we're focusing on is
Mm.
modeling what we're talking about. And for us, the modeling came from an opportunity in agribusiness where the foods I grew up eating are not on the top shelf. And that's
Mm.
crazy. I grew up eating roots to tips. I grew up eating the leaves of potato, pumpkin. I grew up
Mm.
eating the leaves of okra, and those are not on the shop shelf. And I'm saying that is crazy nutritionally, but also in the
Mm.
terms of where African women farmers are farming. Why don't we look at where our people are doing stuff and looking at ways that we can not just aggregate, scale, and provide local and global markets who do consume them. So let's not be constrained by how our local market dynamics are working. So we
Mm.
are modeling an end-to-end value chain owned and managed by women in the agribusiness sector, which is looking at innovations in the product of our natural or indigenous product or plants and finding ways to make them mainstream that are accessible in your retail environment. And that way creating an end-to-end from farm to table opportunity for larger scale participation.
I so
For us,
resonate. I so resonate with you there because I'll tell you why. Just last week, I spoke about can we not look at long-term sustainability? And it's almost as though
yeah,
we parallel and listen listening to each
great.
other without having to chat to each other. And it's so scary because just last week I spoke and I said, why do we not look at long-term sustainability? Because at the end of the day, what that's exactly what you're creating is by going out in the agricultural environment. And what you're giving to the fore there is something totally valuable, because what happens is inevitably, I said it's a nice thing. There's absolutely nothing wrong with going into an area and giving people hampers. But how long is that going to last them, or teaching them? You know, best teaching them a skill like agriculture is a long-term, sustainable, valuable thing that's going to be stuck with them for life. It's in the same way as education. So we're educating them in that particular field, and inevitably, what's going to happen is going to be they're going to be long term sustainable, because they're going to use that time and again, and then take that same modeling structure that you're giving them and inculcating it with somebody else, and it's an ongoing positive domino effect. That's what I'm going to call it. So I think it's so amazing and phenomenal to see, how we think on this parallel line, yeah, where I thought last week, and I said to myself, because I empowered I empowered somebody not long ago, a few months ago, but we did it from a Salam Media point of view, from my show. We looked at the long-term sustainability as opposed to what can we only do now. And I think that's where we need to change our pattern of thinking. I'm sure you'll agree with me with that, because once we create long-term sustainability, we create long-term empowerment and upliftment at the same time.
And for me, that is a question of how do we model that? Because I think you will find in the spaces of women development, the financing and the capital is looking for that short termism because of the nature of capital and the returns that it's expecting to get. And that's why I thought of by saying we need patient capital, but we also need patient strategists who have the long game in mind. And I'm sitting back and saying that whilst it's geopolitics, let me work on geoeconomics. We talk about economic highways. And so if I can create a highway for a rural woman who is farming sweet potatoes, and I can be able to use the products as input and make it mainstream in a way that the contemporary user today consumes that. So for instance, we make things like pesto from morojo. We make sweetened chocolate from spinach and kale.
Wow.
So how do we innovate? How do we create that viability and longevity of products, so that the woman who's farming the sweet potato doesn't have to stop doing that? But it's got so many strategic implications, one of which is also environmental. You're keeping people doing what doesn't harm, because that they know they're not using large-scale farming methods, but through aggregation, they're able to do so much more. I think our impatience to try out new models will continuously make us consumer and not innovator. So how do we model that? How do we create that? And it takes time. It takes, as I say, evangelism. It takes converts to a way of thinking. And it takes our person. And I say, I'm a personal investor in my ideas and ideals. And I think for us, we invite people into that. We're inviting people to Oya Foods and saying, we have got like 5 different product range right now in 2 years. And the game now is scale. How do we invite the public into these conversations? Womenomics exists to interact with policymakers. I'm at the South African Investment Conference right now because I'm listening to wasting money. What are we doing? How does it want to work?
You know what you just said now is important, because you saying bring the public into it, and I agree with you, because the thing is, this is where we start building each other up, and we create those support structures, and we create that ubuntu. And this is what I always talk about on my show, is building relationships. And once we start doing that, we create a structure that never existed, and that structure goes on endlessly in a networking field from one person to the other, and eventually you're sitting with a nation that's definitely changed in many directions.
And we have to pay attention. If the world is telling us that 60% of Africa's arable land is underutilized, what should that be telling us as Africans as where we should focus, and given where the global population trend is going and where the world is looking for food? Right now, I always say that crisis is opportunity. Given what is happening in Russia and Ukraine right now, and the implications on food and sources of food, for which for some of us form part of our staple, what is the opportunity to now scale up those different alternatives and substitutes to such an extent that you create viable African-based constructs and opportunities that have got longevity beyond the crisis? That's where
That
we
is
should be.
so true. That's
These are
so
the
true.
strategic questions that we should be answering. And so for me, the journey that you asked me, what's my journey? My journey is about imagining what doesn't exist personally investing in that change and channeling, engaging other people so that 7 years from now, we say that didn't exist before, but look at what it's opened up now. And we move on to the
Most
next thing
definitely.
because we are here for a
Exactly.
short amount of time.
You have been such an inspirational person to us. So there was something that I, especially to myself,
Thank
Rehema, and I'm
you.
sure now to our
Thank you.
viewers, there's something that I'd like to dedicate from on behalf of my team and myself to you. It says the essence of great leadership is influence, not authority. And you've taught us that your influence from what you do and how you do it and how you reach out to people has definitely created such a huge impact that this is the reason why you were recognized on this particular platform.
Thank you.
And I'm so grateful to see you on a platform that you can reach out with so much of essence in you to be able to uplift, empower, and sustain. And that's what it's about. It's about giving back. I think you've fulfilled your purpose in many a directions. And I have that motto, just like you. We wake up in the morning and we ask ourselves, what has God given us? What is our purpose for the day? What is our purpose
Absolutely.
in life? And you've achieved that in many directions, my dear.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's ironic. I just finished a course design on power and authority in influence and relationships because what you're saying is very true. We have to
Yes.
use not just our power and authority, but our influence and relationships to make this change.
And it's done with so much of humility. So you really make us proud, and you definitely inspire us in many directions. What would you like to leave our viewers with this morning, or should we say this afternoon because we're already past 12?
I think that it's the power of listening, consciously listening every day. Listen to what the world's messages are saying and ask yourself, how am I the answer for this?
Wow, that I think is absolutely deep and impactful. You've definitely left us with some good food for thought. I want to thank you once again for taking time out. We're really honored to have been able to interact with you this morning. I know you've had a really busy schedule, but we look forward to chatting to you in the future and following you on your journey of empowerment, upliftment, sustainability, and nothing but true positivity with a true heart. And we see that in you. So thank you so much for sharing your valuable time with us this today. And I'm sure our viewers are going to get enticed to be able to follow in your footsteps in some way.
Thank you so much. And the Women of Stature team for whom this kind of platform becomes elevated and amplified. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Do take care of yourself, and we hope to chat to you again real soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. That was Rehema Isa, definitely giving us a take on, of course, she's the overall winner of the Women of Stature Award, which I think is absolutely phenomenal, a very well deserved one. As I said before, she's been really doing major things in many different fields. And as you can see, an overall holistic, lovable, giving back human being. So we're really honored to have had her on the show. But before we leave, we've run out of time. I want to leave you with something that I read that says, 8 reminders to live by. Adversity is your greatest teacher. You are stronger than you think. Make your health a full time commitment. Lead with love. You have a powerful heart. Understand your money and master it. Live with gratitude and perspective. Choose your relationships wisely and learn from your mistakes. And I think these are the 8 things that are so impactful. It makes us think about how we can create a holistic environment and a holistic being. And I think these 8 things teach us that, besides what Rahima just taught us earlier. So we want to thank every single guest of ours today that have created some valuable type of space for us to be able to empower, entice you into better spaces and better places. For myself and the team, we want to really thank you for joining us on a really impactful show today with lots of love. Take care. Have a lovely one. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi